All right, welcome to Estimates, the official, unofficial podcast of the U.S. Census. We get the numbers behind the numbers, the back of the napkin methodology that you can only hear on the, I was going to say the official Joe Biden podcast, but we're looking for new applications for the leader of the census. So if you have someone, please reach out. All right, did anyone come up with new numbers? Last week, to remind you, we had two questions.
Mm-hmm.
One of the questions was, how many seals are there in Sri Lanka? The other question was, how many people in New York City use a Japanese honorific to address someone regularly in their life? Did I get that right, folks?
Yeah.
All right, great. Well, so any of you people have an idea of the ridiculous questions you asked?
Yeah, I was looking into that as well, and I find it incredibly unlikely. Although, of course, I'm not sure that we have a record of every seal that's been used. But
I was looking into that as well.
It seems incredibly unlikely that there was ever a seal.
I would feel comfortable saying there was one.
No, I wouldn't. I think it's a big stretch.
I think there was one rebellion household in Sri Lanka that decided to put a seal on their seal.
Okay. First of all, there aren't seals there. Second of all, I found no evidence of family seals aside from European intervention.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, go ahead.
Here's two things I'll say. I want to jump in there. Two quick things.
Okay.
First of all, you all are talking about how there's never been a seal in Sri Lanka. But let me point out to you.
That's not exactly what we said.
Well, okay, that's definitely Hamilton's argument. Okay, all right. So listen to me then. How many native lions are there in England?
Lions were native to Europe. There were a lot of lions in Europe. They were all killed.
Really?
Yes. Yes.
When
European lion.
Lockhart?
Really? Like in England?
Yes.
All right. Well, then never mind.
England's
you guys are right.
Lions can't
destroys
swim.
Wow. All right.
Got me there.
Well, my other point was just going to be that there are family names that are spelled SEAL around the world. So the fact that someone could have a seal of the name Seal is not out of the question. Although I will say our range was 0 to 1 seals of seals. And I would lean more towards the 0 side of that equation.
I just want to let our listeners know that all of our eyes narrowed when Joey tried to say something about family names of seals.
Listen, I will admit that in Sri Lanka, seal culture and being people making seals of family insignias probably goes back to colonial times and doesn't really exist outside of that.
Yeah.
But I do know that there are, places in Asia, especially India and Sri Lanka and the South Asia, where family names did mean a lot even after colonial times. So I don't know how closely that translated to seals. And if there are seals, then it wouldn't be out of the question to have a seal.
Well,
but
they're not on the
that's all
fucking
I'm saying.
internet, so
Well,
we can say that
Also,
much.
does a family name directly translate to a seal? Or
No.
So moving on to
seal
I
header.
think we summed up that question. So moving on to our next question, or our previous question from last week. How many people in New York City regularly use a Japanese honorific to refer to someone that they know, I guess, or just refer to someone
Right.
in their lives? And so we guessed
And we're leaving aside all Japanese people, all people who actually speak Japanese.
We didn't. We
were.
No, we did not. We did not
we
specify
did
that we
not,
were.
but we
okay.
overestimated them.
I see,
We
I
overestimated
understand.
them significantly.
Right.
We assumed
Okay.
100,000 people. were Japanese in New York City. It is
I-
20,000.
And then we estimated way more people use Japanese honorifics. So
Yeah. So I will just remind us that our range was kind of what Hamilton was going off. We say between 300,000 to 600,000 New Yorkers
Yeah,
out
that's
of a
very
population
high.
of about
That's
8 to
extremely
9
high.
million.
super high.
Yeah, I mean, I found the numbers. Hamilton and I can quibble a little bit. I found it was like a little bit more than 30,000, but it was according to like census data about how many people have Japanese ancestry. But I also feel like that number might understate the amount of people who like have a grandparent or a great grandparent who is Japanese, as opposed to being like from Japan themselves. So the point is that we way overstated that number. Does anyone have a count on the amount of weebs in New York?
I'm gonna be honest. I mean, however weeby you are, that doesn't mean that you use a Japanese honorific in your regular life. You know, like that's
It's a
a
starting
further
point.
subset. Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm gonna say that the number of weebs is large, but the number of people who use honorifics is significantly lower.
Much smaller, yeah.
Regular honorific. Well, wait. We also we have to calculate. This might be for a future episode of estimates. We have to calculate how many people are actively involved in Japanese-related martial arts. Martial arts.
Oh yeah,
that's
we're,
true,
We're
yeah.
just repeating the episode, huh? 'Cause
Yeah,
I've
all right, let's
completely
move on.
forgotten.
I would like to say, Googling population weebs in NYC returned by Google 8.3 million. So
Wait,
That's the
wait.
official answer.
Is that pre or post coronavirus?
Oh.
Sadly, pre. We've
Oh,
lost a lot
wow.
of weebs.
Why does Google have info on how many weebs there are and how?
Well, clearly not correct. Okay, we need to sidestep this for now. This segment's supposed to be small. Does anyone have a new question they'd like to bring to the table?
I have a
I
small
absolutely
one.
don't, folks. All right,
Okay, you have one, Tesh?
I have a small one, yeah.
All right.
let's
maybe
stretch
I'll
out your
start.
small one and then compress Joey's long one.
All right. This better not be a seal question
Let's
again.
It's
spend a
not a
lot of
seal
time
question.
on this. I want to spend a lot of time on this.
Oh, jeez. Okay. Are we going with my question?
Yes.
Okay. So how many milliliters of disinfectant do you think has been ingested in the last 2 months?
That's not a small question at all. I think it's incorrect to even use milliliters.
You said disinfectant? Is that what you said?
Yeah, disinfectant.
Wait,
Oh, boy.
what's the location?
I was gonna say
The
all
world?
of US. No.
US.
U.S. We're U.S. Census, Mob. You remember?
All
All right, sorry.
We were talking about Sri Lanka last week, but
All right.
that's fine.
And what's the time frame since disinfectant existed?
No, for the last 2 months. What? How many milliliters since disinfectant got invented
2
has been
months
ingested?
US
So you're
disinfectant.
saying you want to say like April and May or mid?
I was thinking April, May. Yeah.
So my
Okay,
first
great.
question is, what counts as disinfectant? What are we counting within that? Is any old soap a disinfectant? Does it need to
good
be
question.
marketed as a disinfectant?
I mean, obviously, we would put Lysol in there, right? Like Lysol, all of those name brands.
Windex? How about Windex?
Windex, yeah, Windex is
Okay.
disinfectant. Bleach is disinfectant. All kinds of
Oh,
things.
okay.
Vinegar?
Oh, I see. If we're
Vinegar,
counting, if we're
not
counting bleach,
disinfectant.
then it opens up the window quite a lot.
Vinegar is not disinfectant.
I think this is a question of outliers.
All right, so human urine.
Not disinfectant.
All right, I mean, some might disagree. I feel like all dads would ask your father whether human urine is a disinfectant.
There was that headline a couple months ago about something Trump saying, wouldn't it be great if we could just, disinfectants, they just disinfect everything. If you could just do that inside the human body.
Right. That's the reason
So-
for my question, because I was thinking back to that moment, and I think that was sometime in April. That was like mid-April. He said that, and
So, yeah,
because of
I
that is why, like, I was like, actually though, how much disinfectant got drank after that?
You know,
So
I would
I
it's
mean,
expect it to spike, but
I know that as a federal body, the U.S. Census, we try not to take a stand on political questions. But I think we can all agree that that would be great if you could just put this. I mean, he's right. That would be great.
I guess
Um,
I was thinking in terms of averages. Like in 2 months, I don't think the average American has 1 milliliter of disinfectant. But if one person decides to chug Windex, that immediately. That's the question. How many people chugged Windex?
are you trying to argue that the average American has 1 milliliter of disinfectant?
So
In-
wait, I'm still
ingested by leftover remains or something?
Oh, okay.
just dabbing
Interesting.
around your lips.
Yeah. It's like, well, I can't do anything else with this. This is an almost empty bottle. Might as well drink it.
Okay, I'm still stuck on what we're counting though. Like what about an alcohol swab, an isopropyl alcohol? Is that
We need a
disinfectant?
Oh,
definition.
wow.
We need something that that like what? Okay, how about this? Things that disinfect 99% or more, like are advertised as disinfecting 99% or more of germ
Something, whatever it is. Germs, viruses,
Are we good?
Lithuanians.
Lava's a pretty good disinfectant.
What did you say?
Lava.
Oh,
Lava.
yeah, good point.
Pretty good
But
disinfectant.
has
no
to be
one's marketing.
advertised.
No one's marketing lava.
So we're gonna lock that in here. I'm gonna repeat the question so we can all have a moment to review. For all you census takers at home, this is what we're asking Americans on the street.
Mhm.
How many milliliters of disinfectant, parentheses, something that is advertised as 99% or more disinfecting said surface or product or thing, have been drunk in the US in April and May combined of 2020?
That's right.
Locked in. All right, what's our procedure?
Well, let me ask you, Joey, as the man of procedures, does the U.S. Census use the metric system or the imperial system in our official counts? Are we more scientific or more patriotic? That's what I.
That's a
need to know.
great question. And the reason that I think Tej brought it up, if I can be so bold,
He's pushing
that-
his metric agenda, isn't he?
at a
Ever since he was hired here at the census, he's been trying to get us to
You're so
switch.
international. So we obviously are good patriots. We use the king's system, but
American
At
through
a-
and through.
at a time of increased fear, because of lack of good data and communication between countries, we need to convert everything to metrics so that we can work with our international allies,
Wow, incredible.
like Australia, Russia, Turkmenistan, Guyana, the major ones,
Mhm.
to go through. So we're going to be using the metric system for this question, and then we're going to hop back and forth to deal with our U.S. allies and our international folks.
I hear you.
All right.
All right.
Sounds good.
For a quick comparison, about 1 liter is 3.5 cups. If that helps at all.
So I'm going to say this: agree or disagree. Most disinfectants ingested will be by babies and toddlers. Agree or disagree?
In the last 2 months, disagree. I think some
Disagree.
people followed Trump's
Yeah.
advice.
Disagree.
Cinnamon challenge, but for Windex.
I don't know. That doesn't seem plausible to me.
Okay, so here's the thing. I do think that there would be more adults than babies and toddlers, especially in the last 2 months, ingesting disinfectant. That being said, how would we classify those adults, or how would we try to find the number of those adults? I'm thinking. I guess you would have to be a Trump supporter to be convinced that it should.
I got to be honest.
I don't know if you do though.
I think it's been wildly overestimated how far people went in support of this. I know that a lot of calls were received by health centers saying, "Is this really true? Is he saying the right thing?" But I really don't think people followed through. I don't think that's a real phenomenon.
Okay, so
You.
how many people do you think actually followed through on it?
Like none, like 5. Like I really don't think that's a significant number.
I think 10 at least, possibly up to 100.
5, 10, whatever.
mean-
Okay, so wait, if this is the 99.9% advertised thing, then isopropyl alcohol is
Yeah,
included.
it would be, yeah.
There are always people who want to
drink isopropyl alcohol.
fight their system and see if they can get drunk off of things sold as grain alcohol. You know?
Yeah.
So what I would look towards is hospitalizations
Mhm.
and how much it takes to be hospitalized, and then
Okay.
I would overestimate a little bit of
point.
people that don't go to the hospital.
That's an interesting point, but what about the case of just like tiny amounts being ingested just as a matter of your daily life? You know, you rub your hand with hand sanitizer, later on you get a fraction of a milliliter in your mouth. Over 300 million people, it adds up.
I honestly think that would amount to at most a milliliter over the course of 2 months.
Really?
I'm optimistic. But I mean, it's still
Really?
300. That's like 300,000
per person,
liters.
you're saying? Oh, okay.
Per person, yeah.
Oh,
So it's still
okay.
300,000 liters.
Yeah, no, definitely agreed. In that
Yeah.
case.
Jeez.
We thought you were saying overall.
We're careful as a society.
Mhm.
No, not
Sure.
bad.
Yeah, I could see that. But that I mean, in of itself, that's what 300 million milliliters right there.
Yep.
Crazy.
But then there's those outliers. There are those 10 people drinking.
Yeah. I mean, I do think and I say milliliters for two reasons. One, yes, we should work closer with our international allies, and secondly, I doubt there are people that put their disinfectant into a cup and then drink it. I imagine it would be a lot like you're just chugging from the bottle, and
For those trying to get drunk, I see. Or
right,
maybe
yeah.
those trying to address a medical issue.
Sure,
If that's
same
a
thing.
real phenomenon.
But I would expect them to chug from the bottle rather than put it into a glass.
So help me think this through, folks. A milliliter is how much? If I'm holding a shot glass, how much of that shot glass is a milliliter?
Like
50.
tiny bit.
A 50th of the shot glass?
Well, a shot glass is a
So
shot is
don't-
50 milliliters, so it's 1/50th.
I see. Is that's
shot
health class
50
knowledge, but
milliliters?
is that also true in addition to that?
I mean, it depends on the shot glass, but that's supposed to be what a standard
So
shot
50th.
glass is.
One layer of liquid.
The terrible way to think about that. It's liquid.
I got it. No, I got it.
Okay, so
I think per person,
volumetrically.
1 milliliter of just incidental ingestion. I think that's a vast overestimate. There's no way we're getting that much.
you don't think in 2 months we like sort of just accidentally ingested enough?
I mean, maybe
I would
It could be.
I would think so.
it could be.
I think our base number should be 300 million, and then we gotta figure out, how many people ingested like extra disinfectant, because of these warnings or whatever,
I hear you.
and then add that on.
I hear you. Okay. I'm going to start a little lower. I'm going to say a third of that. I'm going to start at 100 million for myself, right? And then for me, the next big group is babies and toddlers. Maybe not everyone agrees on that, but that's the next big
Mhm.
thing for me. So population-wise, how many small people do you think there are in the U.S.? How many babies and
Under the
toddlers?
age of what? People,
Let's say at 6. Let's say 6 and below. Does that seem right to you guys?
and there's about
No, I would say
750
probably like 4 and below.
All right, you think
Mm,
5-year-olds are?
I'll take the under. I take the over. I'll take the over.
All right, 6 and below. You got some numbers for me, Joey? Are you looking these up?
No. I would never look something up at the census.
Okay.
But I think okay, I'm gonna take the over on both of you and say there's a little well, it's tough because I think you keep getting older, you have less people eating disinfectant. But I think you go all the way up to middle school and high school, you have some people that are chowing down. So it's kind of
The
like it's a
last hurrah.
curve.
Resurgence.
Yeah. 8th grade is
Before you
a
enter the
bump up.
workforce, you gotta get some last bits in there.
It's the bar mitzvah bump. The bar mitzvah bleach bump, as everyone knows. Tide Pod Senior Challenge, Senior Prank. But but I
Oh,
think people just like walking in and being like, "What's this?" and putting it in their mouth. Um, yeah, I think it's probably like 6, maybe 7.
All right. So what do you think? What do you think the population of the U.S. 6 and under is?
There's 350 Americans total.
That's not true.
So, huh?
There's 350 Americans total.
What?
million,
Yeah.
million,
Million.
million.
Oh yeah.
Keyword.
So I'll say that I don't know, like 20 million of those are like pseudo toddlers.
Pseudo toddlers.
Toddlers
Right.
plus.
Less than a tenth of people. Does that make sense? I guess it makes sense.
Definitely less than a tenth of like all Americans. Yeah.
Okay, if you say so.
I mean, but they're made so quickly, like that you could have like as opposed to like you have to invest in a 90-year-old, but like a baby is there.
They also
Okay, I hear you.
fall out of that age group just as quickly, though.
Yeah, but if we needed more, like it's a lot easier to get those than it is.
Sure, yeah, that's a good point.
So I'm gonna stick with my 20 million. Is that what that comes down to? And wait, how many are we saying? Take a little sip. Are we saying like half?
It's a good question.
I think
don't know,
half
maybe...
is an overestimation. I would go like maybe a sixth or an eighth, like one of every 8
But how
toddlers.
much do they drink at a time?
Oh,
I also think.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think that a lot of them have they scare their parents and they're like, yeah, I drink chalk, and then it turns out they didn't. But like, there's a bunch that like there's a little scare.
How do you drink chalk?
Oh, this is a. I don't want to get into it.
Okay.
But the point is that I was almost fired from my job. But anyway, moving on.
All right, folks. I'm ready to lock in personally. I feel like there's not much to go. I'm saying 150 million milliliters, which is in regular liters a different number.
300,000.
Which is it? 1,000th? Is that what a milliliter is? 1,000th of a liter?
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you go, folks. That's my guess. 150 million milliliters.
I'm gonna take the over and say 200.
I'm gonna take the over and say 300.
Wow. Okay. And that's our range, folks.
Hamilton?
Well, Hamilton.
Are you gonna?
Can you hear me, by the way?
Yes.
No, we can't hear you.
I still think about a milliliter per person in 2 months, so that brings me to 300 million. I think about 1 in 10,000 people will accidentally drink disinfectant. I think it'll average about 50 milliliters, so 1 in 10,000. That is 30,000 by 50, 150. Yeah, I guess it's about. Yeah, I guess there's 300. No, I'll say 400 million milliliters.
All right, just to fuzz out the census a little more, a little less precision. 150 to 400 million.
So now let's take a second bet for a moment before we move on to our lightning round. Who thinks that we're going to be terribly high, and who thinks we're going to be terribly low?
Boy, well, here's the thing. I don't think we can get an answer on this because most of this is predicated on like infinitesimal, tiny ingestions. Who's tracking this? No one's tracking this. We're gonna start tracking this, and our estimates are our starting point. So, I think we are the experts at this point.
And you know what I will say, Tej, is that of all the questions we've talked about, this is one of the most actionable where like public authorities could really use information to be like, this is how much of a problem ingesting bleach is.
Yeah.
Like, let's get on it or let's not get on it. So
let's
good
not
question.
get on it. It's not a big deal.
Well, I mean, some things you worry too much about. Like Mavi said, people worried a lot about adults ingesting disinfectant and turn out not to be really, or I mean, actually, we don't know. We're gonna get to the bottom of this. Whatever. Okay, here we go. Lightning round. So I'm gonna ask this question. And it is as follows. It's not a humorous question. It's about tracking the social movement of America right now. So, to encapsulate this time period, it's been a few weeks since the murder of George Floyd, and protests have swept through across the United States. So let me ask you, first of all, one of you, give me a famous movie about law enforcement.
Super Troopers.
Lethal Weapon.
Bad Boys 3.
Okay. Which of those three do you want to go off of? Which is the best one to you?
What was the one that Tej said?
Super Troopers.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's the only one of these that I've seen, so I would pick that.
All
one.
right. That's a very interesting one for this question. So, first of all, how much has the viewing of Super Troopers changed in basically, let's say, mid-May to mid-June? So how much has like either people increased seeing Super Troopers, like watching online streaming, or it decreased? Where people are like, I can't watch this movie anymore. This movie is
What's the
unfathomable.
time period?
Mid-May to mid-June,
So
2020.
so the
So the last month to
the
now.
change in what, like daily watches between then and then, or what are we talking?
Yeah, let's say monthly, like yeah, I guess monthly watches is the
So how
easiest thing.
much it was watched in May versus how much it was watched in June? Is that right?
Sure. Yeah, let's go for that.
All right, I see. Well, in my opinion, if there is an effect, it's a positive effect, because all advertising is good advertising, or whatever that line is. I think that if there is an effect, it's only making people, it's only bringing the films more to the forefront of people's minds. You know what I mean?
So I
I can
think
see that.
I think there's two opposing forces pulling on it. I think on one hand, there's less people willing to watch a movie that doesn't have anything to do with I guess the like understanding Black culture and history, like a lot of people are now trying to do, and using their like time streaming whatever to understand more about the culture and history. So that would be retracting from the views. But on the other hand, every single people are angry at cops right now, and every single cop in that movie is portrayed as an idiot. So it's a funny movie to watch, to be like,
That's
oh,
not true. The
haha,
head
look
guy,
at these.
the head guy is on top of his stuff. He's never made a fool of.
Is that true?
The lead, I don't know, is he a sergeant or whatever his position is in the squad? The black guy with the mustache. He's never made a fool of in that film.
It's interesting. It's definitely a satirical take on cops, but it's not the same. It's not like Lethal Weapon or another movie that glorifies like military police behavior.
Right.
So it feels like a different thing, but I wonder how much it's caught up in that same, in those same tendencies, in either direction. It's a bit of an outlier.
Yeah, I think for that reason, the change is almost negligible. Because I think people are on like Twitter are probably a lot more, um, like gonna focus in on something like yeah, I guess from like the 80s or 90s. It's like Lethal Weapon or like Die Hard or something that's like kind of the warrior cop kind of movie.
Mhm.
As opposed to Super Troopers, which is like, it's almost like even like state troopers aren't the same focus of attention, I think, right now as like being like LAPD or NYPD or something like that. So I'm gonna say about like I'll say 0.
No
Sure.
change is what you're saying.
Correct.
I would go with a slight positive. Maybe like a 5% increase or something, like a 5 to 10% increase.
Yeah, I would agree with that. First of all, like I said, any exposure is good exposure for something. If more people are thinking about Super Troopers and how it's a cop movie, that's not going to make less people watch it. It's going to be the same number or more. And also you have to think about the reaction too. It's not, the world isn't just people thinking more about how we can address police violence. It's also a reaction to that. It's also people thinking more about how to be more of a police patriot, more of a thin blue line person. There are probably people hosting police movie parties now because of
Wow,
the
that's a great point.
events. You know what I mean?
Wild.
Yeah.
They probably wouldn't watch Super Troopers though.
They probably wouldn't watch
Oh,
Stormtroopers.
good point. those
I-
are people.
I don't know, I mean-
That's where my zero comes
Yeah,
from.
I'm
They're
actually
not watching
interested.
protest.
I'm actually interested in. I know we picked Super Troopers, but I'm actually interested in what the change would be for something like Bad Boys or Bad Boys
Well,
2.
who suggested Super Troopers?
Well,
All right, you have 1 minute. Discuss.
for Bad Boys would be kind of wild because it not only is a like black empowerment movie, but it's also a movie about cops and being wildly irresponsible with their power. So I have no idea where that's going to go.
Wasn't there a new Bad Boys recently? That would probably have a bigger effect than anything on watchership.
Bad Boys for life.
So I would say that probably that came out before May. Is that right?
That came
Yeah.
out just as this whole.
So
as
I would
was heating up.
imagine then that we're on the downslope of Bad Boys watchership. I'm sure there was a big bump around the release of the latest one, and we're on a downslope since then. That would
Sure.
be my
People are
assumption.
bad boysed out.
Mhm.
All right, so just to review, Hamilton, what's your change in movie?
Slight.
And welcome back to Estimates. Hey folks, if anyone at any point is hearing this, I guess the most likely is Joey. Hey Joey, how are you doing? This is a secret message for you in a bottle. I'm gonna click your. Oh, you're saying that's a wrap? Then I guess that's a wrap. Estimates. All right. I've just received your note to send my files. I'm going to pause this recording, but I wish I could
Estimates.
narrate sending my files to you as well. Unfortunately, it wouldn't be possible to send you the file of me narrating. Alas and alack, this is goodbye.